Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield, and we have for the first time in a long time, an opportunity to do a mailbag show because it doesn't feel like there's a massive tournament that just happened or one right on the horizon. So it's been great to have the World Championships, but Josh, just a Silver Series this weekend, and we're getting ready for the Disc Golf Pro Tour playoffs, but we'll have a chance to preview that on our Thursday show. So we got to do some mailbag. I'm excited.
It's good. We got some good emails. There was actually some really interesting mail coming out of this weekend's tournaments from the Butler County and the Canadian Nationals. So it was conveniently timed because I think at other times those kind of tournaments can be outshined by other important news. So I'm glad that we were able to kind of hit some of these topics.
Butler County Disc Golf Classic was the final stop of the Disc Golf Pro Tour regular season before the Green Mountain Championships, Josh's favorite tournament of the year, will be commencing on Thursday. So pretty dominant victories in both FPO and MPO. Kristen Tatar backs up her World Championships with an 8-stroke win over Jessica Weiss. Wire to wire. No questions about it. She was the best player there by 30 ratings points, and she showed it. And then over in MPO, Joel Freeman came into the final round trailing by 4 strokes to Chandler Kramer. He ended up winning by 9 strokes. 9. He shot a 14 under. That's the new course record. It was 6 shots better than the previous course record, which had been set on Friday and matched on Saturday. Chandler Kramer did that both times. But Joel Freeman shot one of the best rounds of the year to win his first ever Disc Golf Pro Tour event of any kind besides the Match Play Championship from earlier this year. So, look, we're going to get into this round, but I mean, this was some special stuff, Josh. The guy was just absolutely locked in. I mean, he was throwing through these trees, and there were a lot of trees, and it was like he couldn't. It was like the disc had like a drone camera on it, and he was flying it from a joystick.
What's really cool about rounds like that is when you see players who are just. It reminds me, of the Macbeth 16 under at Champions Cup. When you have players who are just so locked in that the trees don't even look like they're there when we're watching it. The fairways to those guys look like they're 3 times larger than they actually are. It looks like you can just drive a truck down it, and people who are struggling, like, for example, Chandler Kramer on the last day shooting only a 1 under, those fairways just feel constrictive. They feel tight. And as you play better and better, the fairways feel wider and wider. And so you're able to just watch just this spectacular round. I think the fact it's bogey free is just insane.
It really is. I mean, I would encourage everybody to go and watch the coverage of this round. It's up on the Disc Golf Pro Tour YouTube channel. I mean, he found the green in regulation on 16 of 18 holes. And like on some courses, that would not be remarkable. But that's totally insane here on this course. Like, I'm going to go look it up right now. Circle 2 in regulation, Joel Freeman, 80%. Second best was Scott Stokely at 65%. And I do want to give a quick shout out to Scott Stokely because he did earn just enough points with his 11th place finish to get into the top 100 in the Pro Tour standings, which means that he will be able to head on to GMC. I'm sure he would have gotten in anyway because not everybody's going to accept their invitation, but still, good for him. Top 100.
Congrats earning it. Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I just want to point out that Scott Stokely was telling us that he was going to be winning Pro Tour events before the start of the season. We can all understand that was a little overly ambitious. But I mean, it was crazy. I mean, there's some moments, and it's not like he didn't putt the lights out or anything like that. He was just so unbelievable getting to the green that he just had tons of opportunities. And I mean, his shot on 17, one of the shots of the year, was a final tree hit away from having probably a tap-in eagle on a, how long is the hole?
579.
579-foot hole with trees everywhere, folks. If you do nothing else, go watch a shot on 17 because it was just wild. And a capping off an incredible round. Josh, I guess I'm going to ask you this. What does this mean for Joel Freeman? He didn't really seem to make much of it in his post-round interview. It's like, yeah, it's a Silver Series. This is not an Elite Series.
Sure.
And, to some extent, he's right. Like, he was one of clearly the best players there, him and Matt Oram. And to have him win is not really surprising given the field.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels like we finally saw a Joel Freeman that, like, put together a full, complete tournament start to finish and kept his foot on the gas when he entered the final round from behind.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of takeaways here. Number one, I'm not convinced that anybody else, even if this was an Elite Series, would have caught Joel. I mean, a round like this was just exceptional. And so it would have required, what was the previous course record? 6?
It was 8.
8? So, I mean, I guess you could see a world where, like, I don't know, Macbeth or something shoots 8 down 2 rounds in a row, and then doesn't need nearly as many strokes in order to, needs a 10 in order to match Joel in the final day. But even that still, it's difficult. So Joel shoots well enough that he probably could win, even if this was an Elite Series event. That's number one. It wasn't just squeaking it out. Number two, the come behind wind, I think, is something that's really important for him, and in confidence, it's something he can draw back on. I don't remember which pro it is, but I remember we talked to a pro who said whenever they find themselves in situations like this, I got to come back, got to make a big putt in a final round, that they draw upon previous rounds where they have done that, and that's what they kind of visualize. I'm sure a lot of people do that, but I remember we had one that we interviewed who talked about that. I think that's something Joel Freeman can do now, right? He can rely on this round or particular shots in this round when he finds himself in circumstances that set up for a similar scenario. The final point, though, and the one that I think he's got to be the biggest takeaway, he just went to a difficult woods course and shreds it, and now has the opportunity to go play at Brewster Ridge and then Maple Hill in a week after, as well as then Charlotte Disc Golf for the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship, all 3 of which are going to feature heavily wooded courses. And if you're Joel Freeman, you've got to go into those courses and think, all right, this is my opportunity to press my advantage because I'm playing really well here in the woods. That's the biggest deal to me. If it was at the beginning of the season, then, it's a good finish. Imagine it was beginning of next season. Great. It's a Silver Series or on the wraparound tour, on the November tournaments.
Sure.
Good finish. Great. It's a Silver Series. But I would probably agree with that nonchalant attitude that he had in the interview. I think this is going to be a bigger deal to Joel going into the 3 events that we have for the rest of this year, just given the way that the courses lay out. I think mentally this could play a really big role in seeing Joel Freeman make the difference from 5th place to being in contention on final day.
Brian Earhart told me that he thinks that Joel Freeman can win a major, not just that he can win an Elite Series. And tools-wise, I don't see why anyone could disagree. I think it's all about what's going on up top. And, Joel went on social media and said, I wasn't proud of the way I carried myself in the first 2 rounds when he was being grumpy and whiny and complainy. But I'm like, okay, but like you do this all the time. Like you weren't complaining and grumpy in the final round because you were playing amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's like being in a good spirits when you're playing well is easy.
Yeah.
But he needs to be able to do a better job of maintaining composure when he's not playing well. The same thing could go for Chandler Kramer, who was the mopiest player I've seen on coverage all season in that final round. It's pretty remarkable how good he is and what kind of potential he has, having barely played the sport. And Jeremy Colling has some thoughts about this Joel Freeman round. I also want to point out that Joel Freeman on social media says that Chandler Kramer has the world's best forehand. World's best forehand. So that's high praise, but when you look at the way that he is able to shape lines in woods with literally just a forehand, no backhand, and how hard he can throw the disc, he definitely has one that's up at the top of the heap. And, like, Eagle doesn't have a forehand right now. Who else do you put up at the top?
Andrew Marweed.
Yeah. Well, I'll leave it as an exercise for the listeners.
There you go. Yeah.
Let's talk about the Jeremy Colling Facebook post about this final round from Joel Freeman, and we'll dive into our mailbag. So, Germ says that Joel Freeman shooting 14 under, coming from 4 back to win by 9 on that course on wet tees in slick conditions is one of the most impressive final rounds I've ever watched. Congrats, dude. Way to win your first tour event. Now, Jeremy says, his round was rated 1077. I hate that numerals are already capitalized because I wanted to make it understood that I'm shouting out loud at how ridiculously low that rating is. He beat the next best score by 8, and on top of that, he annihilated the course record by 6. His round will never receive the historical recognition it deserves, and it's because we use a flawed rating system on high scratch scoring average courses. I know Chuck Kennedy knows this, and although he may never admit it, it really should change. My submission to the powers that be is that we restructure the fixed incremental point system by implementing a top-heavy curve. For example, if player A shoots a 12 under and he's leading the tournament by 2 until the final card comes in and player B shoots a 13 under, somewhere else in the field, player C shoots 1 over and player D shoots 2 over. I think it's fair to say that the one stroke that B bested A by was more impressive than the way that player C, who shot 1 over, beat player D, who shot 2 over. A curved rating system would reflect that, especially when a player dominates the field by 8 strokes. We would finally see some decent ratings on high SSA courses, which are the hardest courses to rate high on. It would be great to have some of the best rounds of all time actually rated as such. Josh, your thoughts?
All right. I don't know enough about the rating system to, like, I know I have a general idea of how it works. I know it's rated relative to the field. I know that because it's rated relative to the field, it hypothetically takes into account the things like the difficulty of the course, weather conditions, etc. But I know that there are a lot of inaccuracies, especially as Jeremy said, at the top levels. This seems like a good system to me. It also, though, I guess one of the hard questions I have is like, how, if somebody shreds on, I don't know, like Memorial, right? And, or on an open course where they have that kind of distance advantage, is the Memorial scoring so well because there's a lot of OB that punishes players who can't throw far, and so that's why you have the furthest to throw accurately just scoring so well? That's always been my understanding of it.
Yes, that's basically the reason.
Okay, so
because you have like crazy 2-shot swings on holes where one person puts it under the basket and the other person skips a little further and ends up out of bounds.
Right. Well, and imagine if I play this course, I couldn't even, like, I would have to be looking for landing zones that people didn't even know were playable because I couldn't get to the greens on those holes. So that's that makes sense to me. But does this mean that rounds at the Memorial score even higher now because we're curving top? It's a top heavy curve. I don't know if I agree that we should. The problem is that a rating system that takes into account, hang on, I'm going to pull this up real quick and we're going to take a quick look. A rating system that has to reckon with, and no offense to Seth Ray, who is 907, who shot a 38 over par, and has to be combined with Joel Freeman's 14 under round. I just don't know if there's a system that can accurately account for all of that. Like the score compression that has to exist in order for those two things to be used to calculate the same round of disc golf is very, very difficult.
Yeah, and I've seen all kinds of crazy takes about this, and I was expecting, I'll admit, a higher number I pulled it up
Yes.
during the broadcast. I was like, I got to know what was like the unofficial rating on this. 1077. It's obviously a very good round, but it does to Colling's point, it does feel like it was a better round than that based on
Agreed.
my general sense of what a 1077 round is, which is like a really good round. But this was not a really good round. This was like one of the rounds of the year.
Yes.
So how do you account for that? You know, the thing is, with the players that were there, here's the interesting thing. It was only about 5 points per stroke, which is pretty low. Normally, I feel like it comes in around like 8 or 9 points per stroke towards the rating. I've seen people be like, oh, this is why ratings are ridiculous and we should never use them. But the problem is, the beautiful thing about ratings, the reason they're valuable is because it allows us to have cross comparisons between different courses, different days, different fields, and we have an objective number that we can say, look at this. This person shot this excellent round here, and it was better than this round they shot over at this other course. Which, how else do you assess that, right? If you shoot 16 under, well, let's use the same number that Freeman shot. If you shoot a 14 under at a pitch and putt course, it's going to be 990 rated or something. And if you shoot a 14 under at this course, it feels like it should be closer to 1100. But I don't know what the solution is mathematically. I just think it's an interesting point. I do think that it's worth discussing whether there should be some kind of bonus for players at the high end of the curve, given that executing an extra stroke or two at the very top end of the leaderboard is more valuable than getting a stroke in the middle of the pack. The concept that Germ is espousing makes some sense. Now, Josh, you're right. It might squeeze ratings even higher to the Memorial. But the Memorial is a fake tournament that should be thrown out of the ratings conversation. It really shouldn't be used because it's not like, it has very specific distinctions that make it a weird event for ratings.
I mean, you're right, but I just don't think you can go, yeah, we have this mathematical equation that accurately predicts your rating and your skill level relative to other players, except for this one tournament that just our mathematical equation can't account for. Like, I actually think the Memorial represents a good litmus test to how good your rating system is.
Maybe.
If you're come on, if your rating system can't account for a tournament that's fluky, how good it and how much it rewards top level pros, but it's an easy course for top level pros and doesn't accurately reflect like the top skill level of those players, I don't know if then I don't think your rating system is proper, right? Like, either the round at Memorial based on difficulty is actually much more difficult. Here's the problem. I think that the problem is that the rating system takes the average, because it takes into account all the players' rounds, right? It's based on that average point from the tournament. You need to find a way to establish where the top level of the skill is and work down from there. Because then you can say, if it's based on that as a frame of reference, you can go to the Memorial and say the top player's skill level is not accurate. Like, it's a great round, but does not require the same level of skills as a 16 under at Champions Cup, for example, or a 14 under at Butler County. And that adjustment then has to fix that top part. I think if your system can't fix that, your system's got problems.
Well, we'll let people ruminate on that. Email us if you have thoughts. Upshot@ultiworld.com. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. Make sure you check out Pound's Custom Pack Builder, where you can customize every aspect of the bag, from the upper fabric, the lower fabric, the zippers, the sliders, the cords. You can get an Octothorpe, an Octahall, a toolbox, or even a Carlton in custom options. And stay tuned, Rufus Customs coming soon. Go to PoundDiscGolf.com to check out the Custom Pack Builder today. Let's move on. And I'll take a quick little jaunt into Canadian Nationals before we get to some more general mail. Thomas Gilbert won by 3 strokes in his home country. Ella Hansen won by 15. Crushing performance from Hansen. They also played a little Connect 4 disc golf. Somebody built it. Did you see this?
I saw that. It was pretty cool.
Very cool. Like you throw it into the you have to throw it in, putt it in, and then it falls down into the tray. So you use different colored putters and play tic-tac-toe or Connect 4.
Connect 4. I did see a tic-tac-toe board that had 9 like of the micro baskets that are yay big, and you use the macro discs. I think MVP calls them macro discs. I don't know what other manufacturers call them, but that was a tic-tac-toe board of 9. I think that would be fun to make with full-size baskets too.
Now I'm trying to think of all of the games that you could create in some way with disc golf. Disc golf chess. No, I don't think so.
I will. This is a quick aside. Have you ever played Lightning, like the basketball game with the 2 basketballs and like the person behind you has to make it?
Oh, I call that knockout, but
knockout. Yes. Okay, same thing. We
have
played that with disc golf once, and we did it in a gym. And wherever your disc landed after, came to a stop slidings where you had to throw your next shot from.
Putting to actually, a basket.
But putted into a basket. Yeah. So we did a circle 2 putt to start. And then wherever your disc landed, and like if you hit cage, it would still skid 30 feet away. And so you still had a circle 1 and you had to wait for your disc to come to rest before you could putt.
I feel like there's too much incentive to lay up.
Possibly. Yeah. It was a lot of fun though. The layup is hard though because of how it slides. Anyway, so second, next email comes from Dwayne about Canadian Nationals.
Okay.
Charlie, we were talking about this. We were talking about hosting Worlds at Prince Edward Island. We were talking about having an opportunity for big tournaments there. And Dwayne writes in, Ben Smith has created something special here in the Maritimes. And while this year's National was just an A tier with $10,000 added cash, Ben made an announcement that shocked us all. In 2023, the first annual Discmania Open will be taking place on Prince Edward Island with $40,000 added cash, with future plans to take the event to a Silver Series or even on the Pro Tour. Ben is extremely passionate and amazing person who's changed all our lives with the events he puts on. He runs the company Flickline, installing courses and running events. Exciting announcement.
Yeah. I saw this Discmania Open. I did not see, though, that it was a $40,000 added cash situation. Love it. I think Canadian disc golf's in a great spot and should continue to get developed. And I think we should have Worlds back there at some point. I've heard nothing but amazing things about this course on PEI. So having it be a stop for a tour event of some kind would make a lot of sense to me, especially when they're putting that kind of money in.
Oh,
Whereas a lot of these Silver Series tournaments aren't even scratching that number.
Yep. Money talks.
Money talks. All right.
Money talks.
Lots of good mailbag. Here we go. Gandalf asks, over under 7.5 world championships for Paul McBeth by the end of his career.
Quick aside, some of these mail come from our Discord. So when we say Gandalf writes in, that's coming from Discord.
It's not actually his name, we think.
It's not actually his name, yes. Oh man, I gotta take the over. And I know I was the guy who was like, Paul McBeth's not gonna win a major this year, and I made an over-under on it. And I know I did it. But man, every time I doubt McBeth, he just finds a reason to just make a fool of me. So I mean, right now I don't see any reason why he couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, he's still in his physical peak.
Yep.
He's still, probably 3 or 4 years away from starting to be on the decline from a physical standpoint, from his, maybe throwing distance standpoint. And tell me who has a better mentality when it comes to the majors.
Nobody.
This guy's the greatest in history. I saw a comment somewhere, maybe it was in an email or I don't remember where I saw it, but just like about Macbeth, and when he really, really, really wants to win, his level of play rises.
Mm-hmm.
And you think about some of the other players, and they desperately want to win, right? We saw it from Ricky. Desperately wanted to win that Worlds this year. And he didn't meet the moment. And the thing about Macbeth is that he meets the moment. He rises to the occasion.
Mm-hmm.
He plays his best when it matters the most. And I don't really know what else there is to say, except that, like, if you're telling me that he can't go out and win at Vermont next year, you're crazy. He finished second to Greg Barsby back in 2018.
Yep.
And, like, sure, somebody could have some crazy tournament like Greg Barsby did, who had multiple 150-foot throw-ins and beat Macbeth. But, like, are you really going to bet against him? Like, if you set odds now for next year's Worlds, Macbeth's at the top of the list, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Question is, can he win enough before he starts to get surpassed by some of these young players coming up? I think so. I think I take the over as well. I certainly think, if you give me the 11.5 or something and you ask me if he's going to get to 12 like Climo, no. I don't think it's possible. I just don't think there's enough time. It's too hard to win. Even if he wins, 4 straight or something, I think he's just going to run out of time eventually, because it's only going to get harder. It's only going to get more competitive.
Right.
So, I just think from a mentality perspective, nobody is on his level right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. Next email comes from Hangman and Paul. I'd love to see the topic of bidding for Worlds discussed. In particular, what does the PDGA need to do to incentivize local clubs, cities, whoever, to host Worlds? It's pretty depressing to me that Emporia DD were the only ones to put in a bid this year. And from what I've gathered, it sounds like the PDGA had to almost ask Smugs and Jeff Spring to host it next year. To add on, I thought the PDGA said at one point they get multiple expressions of interest, but most don't meet the qualifications to submit an actual bid. So the we only got one bid can be true, but doesn't provide the full picture. Does the bid criteria need to be updated? Should the PDGA be providing more support to potential bidders? The DGPT has proven to be the best event running organization in the scene. Why doesn't the PDGA DGPT agreement include event support for the biggest events? Charlie?
Oh, there's a lot in here.
To unpack.
There's a lot in here. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The PDGA needs to revamp the way that they focus on the professional class majors. Now, you want to bid out AM Worlds and Junior Worlds and all that stuff? Great. In fact, you could have a bidding process for Pro Worlds. The bidding process includes things like, why should the PDGA come here and run the tournament at our courses? What can we do to support the PDGA's efforts to run the World Championships in our community? At the end of the day, I think the answer here is very clear. Sure, you want to hire the Pro Tour to be the ones who operate Worlds? You can do that. But behind the scenes, there's still a little bit of a pissing match around who is in control. And you shouldn't be surprised by that, the way things have gone. But little petty stuff happening at Worlds. I don't care whether the Pro Tour gets to take charge or whatever. Honestly, I don't even think that's the right idea. Because I think Worlds is a big enough tournament that requires enough time and energy that you can't have the Pro Tour rolling up 2 weeks beforehand to get it all going. No, we're talking about something that takes probably a full year to put together. And so the PDGA needs to hire somebody or somebodies whose job is to execute and operate the Pro World Championships and the other pro level majors that they operate, which I guess is just U.S. Women's Champions Cup.
Yeah.
But they need a team of people whose job it is to run these majors. And honestly, Champions Cup, U.S. Women's, maybe those can still be sort of like handled by local TDs with support from the PDGA. But I think Worlds needs to be straight up run by the PDGA. They are the ones who they go out to the courses. They decide how they're going to be built. They do all the planning around things. Now, obviously, you're going to need lots of support from local volunteers and the local community. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying they should just like cut all those people out of the equation. Not at all. But I do think that the PDGA needs to have a more direct hand in the execution of that event because it is the biggest one in the sport. And it deserves that. And the PDGA certainly has the money to make that happen. And I think it's the event that can eventually get a $250,000 sponsor. And you have to work to get there, right? There are people at the USGA whose job is to run the US Open. That's their job.
That's their job.
The only thing they do is run the US Open.
Yep.
So you have to have somebody like that, in my opinion, because there were 5 bids for Worlds in this year. Now, I don't know how many of those bids were qualified bids. You know, if I said, hey, I want to run Worlds in New York City, like, does that count as a bid? Probably not. But the point is that, like, there's only so many people who are capable of putting on an event of this magnitude. We know who they are. They're the TDs who run Pro Tour events. It's Heinold, Bjerkes, Jeff Spring. The Des Moines Challenge, Ty Tanat is getting to the point where you think like, well, he might be able to run a Worlds. Sean Jack and the guys out in California.
Thank you, man.
Couldn't come up with his name.
Could not come up with his name.
Like, we know who these people are because they've run successful events for many years. And I think it would be very reasonable for the PDGA to like work with one of those folks, but like have their own team of people who runs Worlds, because I just think it's clearly, it leaves a lot on the table in terms of the overall event performance to not do that. And it honestly just puts too much onus on local organizers when the PDGA needs this to be the crown jewel of the entire season. So that's my thoughts.
The other thing I want to add, imagine if like, tell me, Portland, we've talked about Portland being a great destination for Worlds. We want Worlds to go back to Portland. Completely agree. Tell me that the Portland disc golf community doesn't want Worlds there, right? That's not the case. It's that nobody in Portland wants to put in and be the tournament director and the front man for Worlds.
Maybe that's not even true. Maybe that's somebody.
Maybe there is. Possibly there is. But I think that's the most realistic expectation, is that there is somebody who doesn't have the experience but is willing, or somebody who maybe has the experience but is like, I saw what happened to Utah. I'm not doing this. I have a great, comfortable career. I'm going to keep running an A tier or a silver series. Like, why would you spend that much energy, time, money in trying to set up the professional world championships for no return to yourself?
You may lose money. For many years, Worlds was a money losing endeavor, and it was basically local clubs being like, we're doing this because we love the game. And that's a commendable thing.
Yes.
But it also needs to change.
Cannot rely on it
in 2023 and beyond.
Yes. So get one of those tournament directors, pay them a salary, incentivize them to run Worlds, pick the venue. And here's the other big thing. Most of these courses are public, and even the ones that are private, call the venue and be like, hey, 2023, we want these dates. Yep, we got the courses locked down. Like, this isn't like Portland's like, oh, well, if we're going to let you come do Worlds here, it's got to be on these conditions. Like, it's not how that works. You just need somebody to organize this. I completely agree with you. This shouldn't just be a who out of the goodness of their heart wants to come run Worlds anymore, especially given the fact that they don't run the national tour anymore. We got another email about that coming up. But also the how much money the PDGA has. Like, if use this money. Use this money. make a salary. Like, you could pay that tournament director $50,000 to host Worlds, and that would be a drop in the bucket of
And-
the overall money that you have in that.
And if you invest in this event and you focus on making it an amazing event for spectators, for your presenting sponsorship partners, for the community, like, it will become a money earner for you. It will not be a money loser. It will not be something that you're pouring money from, your general fund into the added cash. No, like, you have the capacity to make this a tournament that you have 10,000 spectators come to through the course of the week. That's a realistic number. That's not an insane pie in the sky number.
Yeah.
You put it in a major metro area, I think you could get 10,000 spectators out over the course of the week. Maybe you could get to 20,000.
You could get 10,000 spectators next year if you do this right.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so and you got to get the tickets priced right. You got to sell single day tickets. You got to have great amenities for the players, for the fans, and you start to work towards having a major sponsor. And I know that this is it's easy to talk about it on a podcast, and it's a lot harder to execute an event of this magnitude. But that's why I think you have to hire somebody to do it, because you shouldn't be relying on local organizers to carry the weight of this event anymore. It's just, we've gotten to the point where this needs to be treated like all of the big pro sports treat their majors, which is where there's massive staffs who run them. So anyway, let's move on. This is a great follow-up question from Dransel. Part of the announcement for the Disc Golf Pro Tour Elite Series absorbing the national tour was that the PDGA was going to focus their efforts on developing other areas of the sport, like youth, collegiate athletics, more tournament sanctioning support, international growth, etc. Do you feel like the PDGA has taken advantage of offloading the national tour to the Disc Golf Pro Tour in regards to further development towards those goals? If so, why? And if not, what do you think should be their highest priority for growing the sport moving forward?
Getting a world championship staff. Okay, great. Yeah, glad I answered that last question. No. Here's the biggest point I'm going to make about the PDGA. The PDGA is probably doing lots of good things. I think.
I don't even think you need to say probably. They definitely
they are.
Lots of
they
good
are.
things.
They're definitely doing good things. But for an organization like the PDGA, to whom you give money, you have to have, I think, not just a public availability of minutes or a summary report that you put up on the website, but you need to have consistent and deliberate public showing of how that money is being spent. When I look at the PDGA advertising on the Disc Golf Pro Tour, and just thinking right now, we pulled this question up this morning. I'm just recalling from what I have seen in recent memory. I think of two ads. One is where they tell me about how I can get a PDGA rating. Given our conversation this morning, I think it's funny that that's what comes to mind. And number two is they talk about the tournament support staff hotline. I think that is a successful endeavor. I don't know if that's new to this year or if they've just invested more in it, including in advertising.
I think it's brand new this
okay.
Either this year or last year.
Yeah, I know, relatively new, but whenever it now is something that is on my mind, and I'm aware of that tournament support staff have the opportunity and directors have the opportunity to call this hotline that is available on the weekends when tournaments are actually being held. I think that's a great investment of PDGA money. I love that idea. I think that's an incredible system that is key to helping tournament directors grow the sport and hold more local events. After that, I don't know what else has been done. And, I believe that things are being done, like we talked about, Charlie, but you have to find ways to effectively communicate what those things that are being done are, what's actually happening to the members, to the potential members, if you're going to make the claim that, with the national tour going away, you're going to focus on these other areas.
Yeah, I think they continue to be an organization that is primarily focused on events, running the majors that they run, and that includes all of the, amateur and age-protected majors. By the way, shout out to Owen Scoggins for killing it at the Tim Selinsky U.S. Masters. And they are also, empowering tournament directors at all levels to run events, which is the primary thing they should do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's keep that in mind, right? The primary thing they should do is make it possible for people to play disc golf in some kind of organized fashion. And they are doing that. Right? I think they are doing that. I think sometimes, though, they do let that get in the way of some of the other priorities that they should have. Like, let's just be honest. Like, the sport is not the infrastructure for the sport in the schools broadly, elementary, middle, high, colleges. It's weak.
Mm-hmm.
It's really weak, and it should be a major priority for them moving forward. Like, some of this stuff's going to take care of itself. Like, international growth, like, yeah, you need to have people involved over in Europe. You need to have people trying to help install courses. But there's a lot of efforts being done on those fronts, and there's going to get a lot of adults playing, and that's great. But, like, when we see all these kids coming out to Europe, you don't see that same kind of thing in the U.S. The galleries here is the main demo of disc golf. It's primarily men between the ages of 25 and 50. That's the bulk. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to think about the next generation and the next leg of growth, we can't count on pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be able to start building up a player base from a younger age and getting those people involved and having, we talked about this so many times on the Upshot. So I don't want to go down to the rabbit hole of all that again. But my point is, I would like to see more clarity around, like, what are the actual tangible objectives that you have around some of these things that you say that you want to do. How are you going to increase opportunities in schools? How are you going to develop the college disc golf scene? It's getting better, right? There's some people who are really committed to growing college disc golf, and that's great. But what are the tangible goals, not the broad strokes? Like, I feel a little bit like they just did a new strategic plan, and they basically reiterated the stuff from their last strategic plan. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. Like, you need to get somebody in here who knows how to, like, make a strategic plan, because I feel like you need some consulting or something. If you're just coming up with the same things you came up with 5 years ago, like, you're not recognizing the changes that are happened in the sport and how those need to be adapted to what we need to do now.
Yep.
So anyway, that's some general thoughts. I think the PDGA is a force for good, and there are things that it can do better, but I certainly think that starting to figure out how you're going to split up the organization for the people who focus pretty much on the events, you need those people.
Mm-hmm.
And we both have
you
just
need
said,
more of those
we think
people.
you should hire some people to do that for, like, Worlds.
Yes.
And that's great. That's a huge part of what the organization does. It's how the organization makes its money, because people buy memberships to play in events. But there is this whole other mandate that isn't being fulfilled as well as it could be, in my opinion. So that's an area I'd love to see them have some growth. And I think your point about marketing and, talking to membership about the things that are happening there is a great one. But I will say, they talk about this stuff and people just ignore it. So you have to give them the credit there that things are going on behind the scenes that you don't know about.
And that's true.
Okay, here we go. What's next?
Matt has a fun exercise. He says draft a team. Matt says for FPO players, but we're going to do MPO and FPO. But draft a team, and we're going to say we'll do. Do we say 3 each, Charlie?
Yeah, we'll do 3. We'll do 3 players each.
3 players each in each division of 25 or younger players. So they cannot be older than 25. You can find the ages of competitors in the article by Jesse at Ulti-World Disc Golf of how old are the competitors at the 2022 PDGA Pro World Championships. So that gives you a good idea. It's noteworthy that this is a hard exercise because there are so many young up-and-coming players that all could be just incredible players. Oh, and Matt, sorry, I forgot to leave the last sentence. You get their careers for the next 10 years. So we get 3 in each division. You get their careers for the next 10 years. It's a hard exercise because there are players who, we probably aren't even talking about or aren't on this list that are going to come out and be just incredible. So, but I think it's a fun exercise. Noteworthy though, Matt includes on his, makes his list and includes both Ella and Holland on this list. Both Ellen and Holland are 26. They are not eligible for this young player under 25 category. So
maybe we should let's extend the age bracket to 26.
All right.
Just 20, to have them included.
Oh, sorry. Ella is 26. Holland is 28.
Holland's going to have to get ruled out.
Yeah, you can't have Holland. 26. All right, 26. Did you know that Drew Gibson is now included as a young player?
It's crazy how
feels
good
weird.
He is so young. Yeah, he turns 26 this year. These ages for players are based on the age that they turn in 2022. So they may be, if they have a December birthday, they might still be a year younger, but you get the point. Okay, well, let's do it, Josh.
Okay.
Holland Hanley's ruled out. 26 and under. Next 10 years of their career, we each get to draft 3. Let's start an FPO. Who you taking?
Okay.
I'll give you the first pick.
All right. You just want the first pick in MPO. I see what you're doing. Anyway, man, this is actually way harder than I thought it was going to be. I'm going to take Evelina Salonen. I think she's demonstrated the highest ceiling of any player in FPO and in this age group. And, she's got 10 years to work on that consistency. So, I'm going to take Evelina.
Oh boy. Next 10 years. I'm going to take Henna Blomroos for many of the same reasons. I think what I saw from Henna at Worlds makes me very confident that she's going to be a multi-time major champion. Mm-hmm. And, it's hard because it's like the putting is a major concern, as it is with Evelina. But they're so young, you figure that they can get there. Maybe they'll never be world-class putters, but they can be a lot better than this.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they can. My next pick.
I get to go next.
Oh, you get to go. Oh, we're doing Snake.
Baby.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
What do you think of this?
Sorry. I thought you just were going first.
Football guy.
I don't want to talk about fantasy.
I'm gonna take. This is the hard pick, I think.
I think so too.
Do you take the upside or the demonstrated skill? I'm going to take Valerie Mondahano.
Interesting.
I think we've seen a commitment to improvement and obviously enough talent to win on the Elite Series, and has a full toolkit of skills and a mental game to match.
Okay.
You get the next 2.
Okay. Well, I guess I get both my picks because Valerie was not even in the 2 that I was going to pick. Which maybe is crazy because you're right. She has demonstrated that upside. I'm going to take perhaps the only major winner on FPO in this group.
I think so.
I'm going to take Haley King.
Totally understandable.
I think the risk of Haley King is how much, is she going to continue to tour full time? Is this going to be the life that she chooses? It seems like that's going to be the case, but she did have some on and off on touring this season. It'll be interesting to see what happens in future seasons, but I think she's demonstrated the success as well. She lives somewhere warmer. She's going to be playing more disc golf. And mean, she's got a major, so I really like Haley King. The final pick for me is Ella Hansen. I think that Ella's elite distance is not something that people just are going to develop over the next 10 years, right? You don't just on this list, right? If they don't have that distance, they might be able to throw further, but they're not going to throw like Ella. And Ella's been in the sport so little. I just think she has enormous potential that has not even been close to being touched yet. We saw it at Worlds, and I think she just is going to be a star in the sport.
I mean, I think those are consensus top 5 picks right there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I respect it completely. I mean, Haley King would have been the first pick on this list a couple years ago, but
yep.
I worry a little bit about the mentality side of the things.
I completely agree.
And I just, I feel like I know that Valerie Mondahano is going to continue to like hone the craft and like has a champion's mindset.
Yep.
Fair point. Not as physically talented and gifted at the game as Haley King. There's no question. Nope. So my final pick, you've got your 3. I'm going to take, this is tough. I'm going to take Kat Murch. She's only 21, and she's already showing you how much better she can get. Now, I think she's limited a little bit from like a technical skills standpoint, but then who else are you going to take? Heather Young's out of the game. Alexis Mondahano hasn't showed me enough on the high end. Emily Beach is an interesting option.
I think Maria
Oliva is also a good option, but like, I don't know. I feel like Maria is what she's going to be in some ways. And I think Kat Murch has already taken this big leap. Can she make the next leap? I think it's possible.
I like the pick.
All right. So let's go over to MPO. I get the first pick. You'll get picks 2 and 3.
Okay.
Gosh. Wow. There's a lot of good players, 26 and under. Like, let me just give you some names. We already mentioned Drew Gibson. Kevin Jones is 26 this year. Calvin Heimberg. Aaron Gossage is 25. Ezra Aderhold. Gavin Rathbun. Bino Makala. Mason Ford. Eagle. Emerson Keith. Gavin Babcock. Tristan Tanner. Linus Carlson. Isaac Robinson, of course. Alden Harris. Adam Hammis. AB. Nicholas Antila. Lowry Lettinen. Kyle Klein. And then you got the teenagers. Gannon Burr. Cole Radalin. This is going to be tricky. Now, God, I don't know what to do.
I think the first pick is...
Take Eagle?
I think the first pick is the easiest pick in this one.
I don't know, because Calvin is eligible here.
Uh-huh. Oh, but come on, man.
I know, but I just worry about the arm. I worry about the arm.
The guy's half broken and still shot the best tournament of the year, though.
Josh, I understand that.
Charlie, you're right.
It's about 10 years that you have to think.
Eagle's fragile. You shouldn't take him. In the words, Benchwarmer Brand, great Instagram if you're an NFL fan. I sent Charlie a video about this earlier, and they were talking about Jimmy Garoppolo, and he calls him as fragile as a dry spaghetti noodle. That might apply to Eagle, so you should just pass on Eagle, Charlie.
Here's the thing. Obviously, he's the most talented player of this group. That's not a question. Obviously, he's had more success than anybody in this group. Calvin's the only one who comes close.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing that makes me feel confident about taking Eagle, which I'm going to, is that he's making the right decisions right now to deal with the arm situation. And that to me is key. Mm-hmm. That to me is a sign of maturity. Like early, he tried to come back a little too soon, and then he recognized that was a mistake, and he's made the right choices since then. And I don't begrudge him if he's going to play in a way that he's not causing himself any pain or making his arm any worse, and just opting to only throw backhand.
Yep.
I can't begrudge him for playing the majors, especially when he wins one of them. Mm-hmm. So I think I look ahead and I say, this is like picking the Warriors, not this past season, but the previous one when they were terrible and Steph was hurt and Clay was hurt and Draymond was hurt a bunch too. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to take the Warriors for next year. I'm taking Eagle. I get him for 10. So I'm going to do the obvious thing. But I don't think it's an absolute no-brainer, personally.
I don't know, man. This guy, I mean, I don't know.
Well, he's mine now, so you don't have to think about it.
So anymore. I don't have to think about it. See, I think Calvin is the tricky pick here.
Interesting.
Because Calvin, like, the biggest question I have about Calvin is he becoming remarkably better week in and week out? Or year in and year out? Because if the answer is no, like, he's going to get passed.
I mean, I guess it's hard for me to quantify that just thinking about it from a week-to-week standpoint, but, like, he's clearly one of the best 5 players on the earth right now.
He is.
So what is the question?
I think that there's a pack of the next best 5 players on earth right behind him. That's the question, right?
Do you want to take, I don't know. I can't think of a good analogy here. Like, do you want to take Luka Doncic or do you want to take Kevin Durant?
Right. Yes. Yeah. And Kevin maybe even is a little, like, too old for that analogy.
Yeah. It's a strange analogy.
Yeah, it is. But, like, yeah, that's exactly the point, right? That's exactly the point. All right. Just because here's what I'm going to do. Pick number 1 goes to Isaac Robinson. I think this guy he has only begun to scratch the surface. He has so many tools. He is such a good player, and he's got the mentality to boot. I cannot wait to see what he does with more touring time. And the guy's only 22. Love Isaac Robinson. My next pick, I'm going to take Calvin. I'll do it. I'll buy.
You make it sound like you have to. I literally strongly considered picking Calvin with a number 1 pick.
Fine,
I don't understand.
I'll take Kevin Durant if you make me. I mean, you're right. It's so boring. It's good. It's a good pick, but it's boring, and I don't like doing boring. But whatever.
You pick Calvin to win all the time.
I know, Charlie. There is no consistency.
This bizarre.
Our podcasts exist in a vacuum. You're not allowed to bring up anything talked about in past podcasts. You're 100% right. You're 100% right.
Project picks, I think Isaac Robinson is a pretty interesting one.
Interesting.
I think it's a pretty interesting one. I think there's more obvious picks. I'm going to take one of them for sure.
Okay.
Let me look at this list one more time before I make my next pick. I wonder if some of these players are going to get picked. Very interesting. I'm going to take Gannon Burr. He's 17.
Yep.
Come on, folks. Like 10 years with the skill that we've seen from him now, the dominance that he showed as a youth player. Like this is the archetype of what we've seen from the great players in the sport. This is what Macbeth did. Yep. Dominated young. And I mean, he's so young still that like it's easy to forget that he's still 5 years younger than Isaac Robinson. Think about that.
He is.
If anything, he's like somewhat of a risky pick because he might not get good enough, fast enough to get that 10-year window maximized.
But that's actually part of the reason I wasn't like.
I just
27. I mean, anyway.
Killer mindset.
Yep.
Shows poise in big spots already. The best putter on tour. Elite distance. Like, I don't know what more you need to see. Like, I feel like the tools are just massive. And, you never know how somebody's going to go moving forward. But, like, to me, it's just a matter of time before he wins an Elite Series event. And I think he will definitely be a major winner in his career. My third and final pick. Wow. There's a lot of choices.
So many. I feel like the Europeans are going to get snubbed, and it makes me really, really sad. Can we do a fourth pick with the European?
European only? Okay, I like that.
Yeah, European only 4th pick. Okay.
I like that. I like that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to go... This may be a little bit controversial of a pick, but I think that there's some real potential here. I'm going to take Anthony Barella.
No, that's what I was going to take. I was like, there's no way he does it, right?
He's 22.
Uh-huh. You forget
it is
how
so
young he is.
easy to forget how young he is because
So
he's been on the
easy.
scene. And again, I mean, obviously the talent is massive. And what I think is important is that we're starting to see him be more consistent at the highest levels.
Yep.
And we're starting to see him near the top of the leaderboard on a regular basis. And it's not just like this shoot an amazing round and then just have a terrible second round to be completely out of the tournament. He is showing up more. And yes, he still has things to get better at. But I mean, my God, like this dude throws better than anybody. Mm-hmm. He literally might be the number one, certainly backhand thrower on tour. It's crazy to watch him throw the disc. And I think that baseline level of ability, same with like Gannon in the putting, I just feel like we're going to see him start to get wins eventually. Like, and again, similar to like Haley King, you wonder like, will the mentality ever reach the physical tools? That's a risk that I'm taking with this pick.
Yep. I was going to pick him. My final pick, it's going to be the young man. He went toe-to-toe with Paul McBeth at a major, loses in a playoff on the first hole. That's right. I'm taking Kyle Klein, baby.
It's a great pick.
Kyle Klein. I know. I hope I trick some people. Aaron Gossage is good, but I mean, it's easy to forget that last season Kyle Klein did the exact same thing at USDGC. And he's got an Elite Series win, and he's 5 years younger than Aaron Gossage. The guy's 20. Like, long term, I think Kyle Klein has a lot of potential.
Yeah, if you're giving somebody a 10-year contract and you give it to them at age 25, or in the case of Calvin Heimberg for you, 26, definitely going to be sitting there looking at the watch in later years.
Yep, that's the case.
Some good players didn't get picked here. Kevin Jones did not get picked.
Aaron Gossage.
Gossage. Adam Hammis. I think we picked the right players mostly. Who's your Euro pick?
All right, my Euro pick is based 90% on, not 90%, but largely on age. I think you have you got the 23, 24-year-olds of Linus Carlson and Vino Makala. I think they're excellent picks. Vino is better on tour this year. But if I'm going to go for a Euro pick, I'm going to take Nicholas Antila. He's had the higher rating of the Euros, and like the longer we go on in professional disc golf, the more time Euros are going to get in the United States or at a highly competitive European tour. So I just want the guy who is the youngest. Well, he's not quite the youngest, but I want the young one who has longer to spend and profit from that increased and improved system. And Nicholas has shown us that he has the skills to be the best in Europe. It wasn't this season here on the United States side, but he's only 21. So I'm taking Nicholas Antila.
I'm going to take Lowry Lettinen.
Other young pick.
Yes. And has rapidly ascended to 1029 rated. And I think is a little bit on a plateau right now, but has, I think, clear breakthrough potential into the 1030s, and has had some good moments this year. Has also had some clunky moments this year. But I think that's to be expected from a young player. And so that's my Euro pick. What a fun exercise. Some people are going to be howling mad at our picks. I can't wait to hear from everybody. Upshot at ultiworld.com. Let us know what you think. So, and sort of a related question, who's going to get more championships this decade, Josh? And this comes from Walk. Kristen Tatar. So this decade, right? We're already in
this decade.
Kristen Tatar, Paige Pierce, Haley King, the combination of Evelina Salonen and Henna Blomroos, the combination of Ella Hansen and Holland Hanley, or the combination of the Mondahano sisters.
Oh my gosh. I think I just felt my brain break a little bit. Like, Holy smokes. This is such a great question, Walk. Walk is a regular contributor to the Ulti World Discord. If you're not a member, you need to become a subscriber for less than $4 a month. Costs you less than your whale sack to come over and hang out with Walk and us in the Discord. So bunch of regular contributors, but Walk is a staple there.
Discgolf.ultiworld.com/subscribe. Josh, continue.
Yes. Thank you. Man, more world championships this decade. Okay. I think wow. I'm going to go with Evelina and Henna. I think look, I mean, okay, hold on. You know what? No, I'm going to make my picks. I'll let you make your picks and then we'll talk.
Okay.
I'm going with Evelina and Henna. Charlie, who are your picks? Or your pick?
Paige Pierce.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. Right. So tell me why you take Evelina and Henna.
All right. I take Evelina and Henna. I mean, okay. Both of them have shown up. They did at this World Championships and they do it majors, right? They crack. They need some maturity. They need some growth, especially in the mental game and the putting game. But they're both so young. They're 23 and 22. They're not that. Evelina will be 31 at the end of this decade. Henna will be 30. I really think that as young players, they are two players that have some of the highest ceilings, that they're already competing with Kristen and Paige, right? Evelina was the one who dropped it at the European Open to Paige, and Henna is the one who dropped to KT at Worlds. They can do it. I fully believe that they can get the putting taken care of. And so to take two of, like, when we do our tier rankings, I think these two usually go in tier 2. They've dropped out at times this season, but to have two of them together that young with just nothing but potential and upside, like, here's my other point. It can't get worse than it already is. Right? Like, their putting cannot be worse than it is. Their mental game cannot be worse than it is, which means there's only upside. And so I really like both of them for an entire decade.
There have been 7 majors so far in this decade. Mm-hmm. I assume it depends on when we draw the start line, I guess. I'm assuming that the decade begins in 2020 and ends in 2029.
That's probably more accurate. So my years were off on their age.
Anyway, you know, obviously you can draw either way.
Yeah.
But there have been 7 majors since the start of 2020.
Okay.
Paige Pierce has won 4 of the 7.
Okay.
Why people are acting as though Paige Pierce, because she has not played that great the last couple of events and didn't compete for the World Championship win this year with Kristen, is somehow going to just disappear into the ether. She's won 2 of the 4 majors this year.
Yes.
Hello. Like, she's still top number 2 in distance on tour behind Ella. Yeah. She's still an incredible putter. Mm-hmm. Like, she's the most accomplished player in FPO history. Now, the risk I take is that she is getting older.
That's my problem with this pick.
And I understand it.
She's 31.
I just feel like she's going to keep winning for a long time. And that, like, yeah, she's not going to win the majority of the majors, but she doesn't need to do that. She only needs to win more than these other players. And I think that she can. And she's already out to a big lead.
No. This is World Championships.
This is specifically Worlds?
Yes.
Wait a minute. You're right.
I know. Okay. Right.
We're gonna revise.
You gonna double down? You gonna stick those heels in the sand? Come on, Charlie. She's not washed, right?
She is 0 for 2 on Worlds in the last 2 years.
And she'll be 39 at the end of this decade.
Okay.
38.
No. I do have to think about it again now. You're totally right. I just in my brain it went to majors instead of Worlds.
That's fair. I think Paige is a much more reasonable major pick. I think Worlds is...
It's a more difficult question to answer.
It is. Sure. Yes.
Holy smokes. So our world's winners so far this decade are Katrina
Allen, who was
not even included in this list, which is just disrespectful.
It is. Granted, she will be 44 at the end of this decade.
Well, yeah. I mean, she's in her mid-30s now, right?
Yeah, she'll be 44. She's 37.
Wow.
It's
amazing that she won at age 36.
It is. You can stick her on the list, but I probably would not include her. I would
probably not. Probably not.
So,
and then obviously Tatar, who's in her young 30s.
Mm-hmm.
God, that's tough, man. I'm gonna stick with Paige.
All right.
I
applaud.
I think some people think that she's never going to win another Worlds, which I think is ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't agree with that either.
I'm concerned about the performance this year. I mean,
yeah,
she really, really wants to win number 6. That's obvious enough, but like, she pressed so hard. She got worked over by courses that she should have been able to tear apart. And I think that is concerning, but the talent is just too high. I mean, if Kristen Tatar continues on this level, it's going to be her.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know if I necessarily think that she's going to be able to maintain at this level and like all the time away from home. Is she going to still want to be doing this in 10 years? Paige Pierce, I have no doubt. So, yeah, that's a really very difficult question to answer.
It is. Yeah, I love this. I love this question. So, all right.
Last one for today.
Last one.
I'll ask you.
Okay, go ahead.
Which courses and events impressed this year and should be locks for the 2023 schedule? And which event should be left off the schedule entirely? This comes from Pete.
Yeah, GMC. I think that it's just the most impressive set of courses. I haven't seen them yet, but I'm confident in saying that. And they're at Worlds next year, so that's a lock. No, but if we're asking like on the fringes, right? We're probably not talking about Ledgestone here. We're not talking about the staples. So here's my takes. I'm gonna pick 2. I think 1, the Portland Open. Glendoveer was amazing. It is the standard for disc golf courses. It is beautiful. It is well designed. It is exciting to watch, and that's important for a spectator sport. I love Portland Open. I'm excited for Portland Open next year. I want Worlds to be at Glendoveer as well as a wooded course. That course, in my opinion, should be a lock for the 2023 schedule. Other event that impressed me, Des Moines Challenge. You break the 100K mark for a 3-day tournament, and you are setting a standard for the Disc Golf Pro Tour and for Elite Series events that I think absolutely means you must be on the tour next year. I think it is so impressive what they were able to do out there, and they deserve nothing but the highest praise.
Okay. For ones that I think that like need to stick around and I'm impressed by, I think that they continue to make the OTB Open better. And the course is getting better, and the event is a top tier one. And I think that the event side of it matters as much as the course at this point.
Yep.
And of the, some of these ones, like, we don't need to talk about, right? Maple Hill is going to be on tour forever.
Yep.
Okay. So like, it's the best course in the United States. I think you named the ones that I kind of liked too. I mean, some of these just feel like they're going to be on tour, like Idlewild.
Yeah.
Like I don't have any concern about Idlewild not being on tour next year. Trying to think if any of the Silver Series courses showed me enough that they should like move up.
Okay,
I'm not so sure. You know what though? I hope that Milo McIver once again has been spared fire damage. I do think that they managed to keep it out of the disc golf courses. There was a big fire there last week. Mm-hmm. They had to evacuate the whole like Milo McIver State Park area. But I think Beaver State Fling should be back.
It's a good one. Events that should be left off. Charlie, I'll let you go first.
Well,
I think
I gotta kill one of these Texas tournaments. I mean,
yep.
There's just too much.
Yep.
We can't have Waco and Texas State. This year's Texas State's course, blah.
Yep.
Terrible. But Waco, honestly, Waco's on the chopping block for me.
Ooh, okay.
They can't make the course any better. They can't make any changes there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have... I think the course is fine. I think it's fine. It's not going to improve, though, because they have no space to improve it. And I think that, like, we could probably get a better Elite Series course in Texas. We need to have an Elite Series stop in Texas. This I know. And probably a Silver Series as well. But the 2 Elite Series there, I don't want it anymore.
You ready for this, Charlie? I don't think the presence of both of them is what makes... I think the Texas States and Waco are the 2 worst Elite Series events this season.
Wow.
And I don't think it's because there are 2 events in Texas that they're the worst 2 events. I think that the course was... Waco is always so weird. It's so fluky. And as you said, the course can't get any better. Texas State's disaster this year. I think that course was the worst course on tour.
It was so bad.
It was so bad. It was so bad
everywhere.
So ready? You ready for this take? Cut them both. I want them both off, and I want a new Texas tournament. That whatever you want to call it. I know the Lone Star Classic. I haven't seen the course, but I know they did a lot of work when they were just a B tier because their goal was to get disc golf back in Austin, and this was 2 years ago. I want a top quality Texas disc golf is amazing. There are amazing players in disc golf. There are amazing courses in Texas. I've gone and played them. I've met amazing people. I've played great courses. I want Texas to try and claim the best disc golf tour event, pro tour event in the country. You have the tools and the people to do it. I don't think either of the tournaments on the pro tour right now in Texas are cutting it though.
Yeah, I mean, you could call it the Texas State Disc Golf Championship. Just put it on the best course in Texas.
Yes. But I don't think we've seen the best course in Texas yet.
That's fair. So you want to cut them both. Wow.
I say cut them both and give me a new fresh Texas start that is Texas big, that is big in your face. We are going to be the best tour event on tour. I don't know if it will be, but like that's what Texas is known for, right? The big in your face kind of stuff. Give me a disc golf tournament that's like that. I just don't think either of the tournaments like as they are now does that. So cut them both. Give me a new Texas tournament.
Yeah, when I say Beaver State Fling should get added, we can't have 2 tournaments in the Portland area either. Like, they're probably going to have to combo Milo McIver
and Glendevere
with Glendevere or something
Worlds.
like that.
Worlds.
I know.
That would be
100%. It'd be
amazing.
It'd be a dream. Are any of these other tournaments feeling like they're forgettable at this point? I mean, the tour is in a pretty good spot right now. I think. I just wonder, what are we missing? What have we not seen that we should get to see? That's my big question.
Eagles Crossing?
I like Jonesboro. Sure, Eagles Crossing. People keep talking about that, but I've heard no rumors from the Pro Tour going there.
I don't know. It's weird because, I mean, the guy said he designed it, like he built stands for cameras.
Aren't they doing some insane $50,000 skins thing coming up here in a little bit?
I think so, yeah.
That's crazy, man. What more can he do?
What more can he do?
We'll see. I just feel like there's got to be more courses out there that we should be getting a chance to see on tour. And, some of these tournaments, like, even if the tournament directors are great, maybe the course isn't the absolute best around.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to see a little more variety just to change things up, just to have some more fun stuff to see. So let us know what course in your local community should get a chance to be on the Elite Series. Email us, upshot@ultiworld.com. That is going to do it for today's show. We'll be back with you bright and early Thursday to preview the Green Mountain Championship. So make sure that you get ready. Disc Golf Pro Tour playoffs are coming up. For Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long. We'll talk to you Thursday right here on The Upshot.